This week in Arsenal, the Gunners fall away to Villa, Arsenal miss chances galore, a 1-1 draw at PSV ends a successful Champions League group stage, and the Hale End kids stay on the bench. Let's get into it.
Maybe we'll have a good surprise for you.
Welcome in to This Week in Arsenal, episode 38. It is the day after the PSV 1-1 away draw, and Sash is still out. Still not feeling particularly well. He'll be coming back as soon as he can. But I'm manning the ship in the meantime, and so we're going to talk about the PSV match. But of course, I need some illustrious guests to talk about that with. So joining me today joining me are AFC James, who you can find on Twitter at James. Switch those two things around. I haven't had enough caffeine today. And then Raf, who you can find on Twitter at Rafsenal. Both these guys, by the way, you can find on the oh shit! Why am I forgetting the name?
No Ratings podcast.
No ratings.
That's it.
I was going to say no
ratings.
skips for some reason, and I was like, "What the hell are you talking about?" No, it's the No Ratings pod. I actually really like it. I really enjoy listening to you guys because it's a really good mix of like fans from like all the big, I guess big six. I don't subscribe to the theory that there's a big six, but the bigger clubs in England. It's really like a lot of good fun listening to you guys, chat football and get into all that stuff. So excellent pod, even though I forgot the name of it. Again, I'm functioning on not enough caffeine today. But we're going to talk about the Aston Villa match, and we are going to talk about the PSV match and kind of get into some details in there. But first of all, gentlemen, how are you doing?
James, do you want to go first?
Okay, I absolutely can. I'm very well, thank you. I'm very well. I've been working a little bit today. I'm sure a lot of people know by now. I tutor English to Koreans, so yeah, I have been waffling all day, and I will be waffling some more on this podcast. And I'm just fresh off the back of a haircut, as you may be seeing, because I have my graduation tomorrow. So exciting times in my life. But yeah, I'm in a very good mood because I'm not working for the next 2 days as well. So that's me. How are you, Raf?
I am good. I'm doing all right. I think this is probably the favorite time of my year because these games just keep coming thick and fast, and Christmas football vibes and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, it's just nice to watch all the football and inhale all the footballing content right now.
And how are you, Sham?
Yeah,
I'm good. Actually, speaking of haircuts, I got one later today, which is half the reason why I'm wearing a hat right now. Just because I don't really care how it looks today. But I'm good. Raf, I agree with you in terms of this being my favorite time of the year. I grew up Muslim, so I never got to experience Christmas really, and now I'm about to marry into an Irish Catholic family, so I get to do Christmas all the time. So I'm getting into that Christmas spirit, but also, man, just so many games. And like, it's, if this was happening a few years ago, I'm not sure how excited I would be, but with how things are, with the team playing as well as it is, and, kind of the feel good factor around the club, it's been a lot of fun. So yeah, I'm excited to chat some footy with you boys today. And James, congrats on graduating, man. That's
thank you very much.
Big milestone. So speaking of big milestones, on Saturday we suffered the second loss of our Premier League campaign so far, and that involved us going up to Villa Park and taking on Unai Emery's flying Aston Villa. And they, I think in the 6th, 7th minute got out to a 1-0 lead and managed to hold on to that for the rest of the match, despite us really knocking on the door throughout the match. So I just kind of, before we get into, some specific aspects of the game, I just kind of wanted to ask you guys, what do you think went wrong at Villa? And this might be a bit of a softball, but, Raph, I'll start with you first.
I think the way we played, if this game was played 10 times, we'd win 8 times, we'd draw once, and we'd lose once in a free club and an off chance. And that happened to be on Saturday. I think all we just did was just mess up our final actions, just mess up that final pass, lose a bit of composure in the final third. And yeah, it's just overall, I'm actually, the way the game went, I was really happy with the performance. I was really happy with the way we were moving the ball from back and, doing all the stuff that, Arsenal does these days. But just when we got around the box or into the box, we just lost our head. And you know what? That can happen. I'm not going to it's not unforgivable or anything. It can happen as a team. But yeah, it's just, we kind of just lost our head around the box and didn't really take our chances, because the way I was counting those chances in the first half, we should have had, we could have easily been 2 or 3 goals up. But, what can you do?
Yeah, no, I tend to agree. I just think we every time we got into the final third, and we pressed them really well. I remember in the first half alone, there were like 4 or 5 times where we won the ball in their third and then proceeded to do nothing with it. And
Yeah.
I forget who, I think it was Kimo, but someone put out kind of a compilation of all the chances that we missed and all the final third opportunities we had that we kind of threw away just in the first half alone. And it was really infuriating. And
Sickening.
and just before Villa got their first goal, I think Martinelli kind of whipped across into the back post, and Saka didn't hit it well at all, just kind of skied it to the right. And I had a feeling kind of in the pit of my stomach, when you miss a chance like that, bad things are going to happen. And sure enough, they went right down the field. But James, what's your take on what happened at Villa and kind of what we did wrong there?
I was just having a think, and I had a look at how many teams have actually gone invincible before. And as we all know, going invincible is such a difficult thing to do. And I think that game is a very good reflection as to why, because you can be better than a team, but not every time you are better than the opposition will you win the game. So this was one of those games where we were better than the opposition, but we lost because we weren't so much better than the opposition. To be able to go invincible, you effectively have to be so much better than the opposition that even with the variance, you will still win the game, or be incredibly lucky throughout a season. That was just an example of where we were the better team. But because if we played like that, if we finished like that against a team like Burnley, we'd get away with it. We'd probably still win 1 or 2-1, 1 or 2-0, and we'd be fine. Whereas because Aston Villa are already a very good team, we weren't on it. They scored from their biggest chance of the game early on. It was a little bit sloppy from us, but a very well taken chance. And then after that, you're not going to get unlimited chances against Villa. They are still a very good team. We got a little bit of bad luck. We were finished poorly overall. So yeah, it's just one of those games that unfortunately you can't win. But you can get away with those if we turn up to Anfield and perform. But now we have the next 2 games are an absolute must win now for us to I guess be in with a chance at the end of the season, or at least draw at Anfield. We cannot lose at Anfield now because of that. Previously, if we beat Villa, we could have got away with losing at Anfield, but now I don't think we can afford to.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think we do have to get at least a point at Anfield, especially because Liverpool have now gone ahead of us in the table. But yeah, I think that's spot on in terms of the fact that we didn't take advantage of kind of the opportunities that we had, and Villa are too good for us to do that, right? And I know there were these jokes running around as soon as Villa went up 1-0 about how Emery's kind of a specialist at losing leads, or at least he was with us. And people are saying advantage Arsenal, but I think Emery's still a very good coach. Maybe we'll talk about that in a second. And they, I think, defended decently at least. We still had plenty of opportunities, but I think they did what they could to, to hold us off and kind of just make things that extra bit trickier in the final third. But James, do you find yourself more encouraged, kind of with a rest of season outlook by how we played, or does the pitiful inability to finish kind of leave you with some concerns?
It's somewhere in between. I'm not more encouraged because I knew we had it in us to play like that, and I know we are better than Aston Villa, and I had a feeling it would be that sort of game. So I'm not encouraged. It's frustrating, the outcome of the game. But it does show if you watch how we played against Villa, and maybe they were more tired against us, but against how Man City played against Villa, and we looked like a far superior team to Man City just a few days before. So it's a long season, 38 games in a season. So far, we do look better than Man City. I also believe we look better than Liverpool. So as things stand, I think we are just about the best team in the league. Now, Man City still have Kevin De Bruyne to come back into the team, which is a massive thing. And as we all know, they can string 15 wins together like it's nothing. So it's somewhat reassuring, but at the end of the day, we still lost the game. And I'm not too worried about the finishing, but I hope we buck up our ideas a little bit, because some stats have been going around about players like, I think, Saka, Martinelli, Jesus, all of these players only have about 3 or 4 non-penalty goals in the league each. And we need to run those numbers up a little bit.
Raf, how about you?
It's just, just the way it is. I've kind of already got over the match. I've kind of just put a lid on it. So I've moved away from it. I think now for us, it's about, just looking at the games that are coming up. 2 games that we have recently, I think, struggled in, especially Brighton at home. We haven't won against them in 2 years, which is very odd. I think last season's one was a 3-0 at home, and the season before was a 2-1. So I think now it's time for us to get serious about this, because I think for the way we've started the season, everyone's just kind of been pretending that Arsenal haven't reached the top form yet, and Arsenal really haven't got it going yet. Well, we're at mid-December now, and now it's like there is no more. Oh, the season's only started, and we're still figuring each other out. There's none of that anymore. I think now it's just time to get into business, and the players do look warmed up. They look like they're ready to go, especially Kai Havertz. He finally looks like he's clicked and ready to go, which is good to see, because at one point I was kind of getting worried. I was like, is this guy ever gonna get it going? But I'm glad he has, and yeah, let's see where we sit at the end of this month after, I think, we got Brighton at home, Liverpool away, and then West Ham at home. These are the 3 games that I've kind of pinned in, and we'll see what happens after that.
And then a nice run, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, we get another comfortable run like we did from the start of September. So, we need to, if Man City can do 15 games on a trot, we need to do it as well. Just the way it is now.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a little bit more encouraged after the Villa game, not massively, right? I still think the finishing's a problem, and James, I have seen the stats that you referred to in terms of kind of the lack of non-penalty goals, and just, I think in particular for Martinelli, the limited opportunities really on goal that he's getting. Those are things that need to be sorted out, but kind of in comparison to where we were, a month or 2 months ago, where we were wondering whether we had just kind of forgotten how to attack and whether we were just going to be an ultra conservative team throughout this year. It's nice to see that in the right circumstances, we can create, an absolute plethora of chances. So that is encouraging. And, when you compare us to City, I think City are starting to show some key weaknesses. They haven't been good in the times that Rodri's been there, and Rodri is no longer with his superpower of avoiding yellow cards. So I think that's going to be an issue with them. And Liverpool a really interesting side to me, because I I think they are what I'd call a glass cannon. They concede first constantly. They don't really have an actual six. They're playing guys. I think Enzo's better than expected, but they're either playing him or they're playing McAllister or they're playing Gravenberch at six, and they don't really
I think
have.
McAllister
Yeah,
just on that. I think McAllister is injured for a while now as well. If you saw,
yeah,
he was on oxygen and some crutches, so yeah, he'll be out for a while. Thiago might be back, but he's the most unreliable player
You
we've
can't
seen in the
count
league
on him.
for
You can't.
quite a while. So yeah, we'll see. But without McAllister, their midfield is pretty threadbare.
yeah.
I guess another thing with Liverpool, sorry to interrupt, but is
No worries.
later down the line. Right now, Arsenal and Man City have been, while we've been playing the Champions League, we've not been able to rest many players, whilst Liverpool have. When it gets to the later stages of the Europa League, we'll see. Maybe they won't choose to, but it's likely that they will probably start Salah in a few more games, start a few more of their starters. And we know full well how those Thursday games can start to have an impact on your the rest of the season. So, yeah, there's plenty of reasons why Liverpool should slow down a little bit.
Also,
And go on.
obviously Salah's going to go away for the AFCON, and without Salah, the firepower in that Liverpool team is not all that. Like I want to say, like Darwin, Luis Diaz, really good names on paper, but they've got what, like 2 goals each in the Premier League or
Yeah,
something like
Salah's
that.
a joke. Salah's a
Yeah,
joke.
Salah's been carrying
Salah
them
is
in
what
terms
we
of,
miss.
yeah. In terms of pure output, Salah's the one that's been carrying them, and Darwin has had his moments at Newcastle and all that kind of stuff. But without Salah, for however long he's gone for, I don't know, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever that might be, they're going to be in some trouble unless those attackers get into form somehow, which they haven't.
And
Really, to be honest.
also on that, obviously Matip won't be going to the AFCON. Well, he's actually retired from Cameroon, but
Yeah,
he's out for the season with his ACL. And obviously
I
they have
remember that.
Konate, but he's super, super unreliable in terms of his fitness. So behind that, you've got Konza, or who gave away a penalty against Palace, or Joe Gomez, who I think they seem reluctant to play there. And he's also there basically backup / right back when Trent wants to go forward. So they do have a little bit of depth there, but losing Matip for the season is quite a big blow for them as well.
Yep. I could see them trying to go for a center back in the January window.
But they need a midfielder as well.
Yeah, no, I mean that's the thing. I think Liverpool had a very good summer in terms of the acquisitions that they made, but I was always a little unsure of them just because the amount of additions I think they needed to make in order to become a full-on title challenging team. I don't think you can accomplish that in one summer, and I think that's starting to kind of bear out with with how the injuries are going and kind of the lack of depth in some key areas there for them. And yeah, if Salah is unavailable next month, and depending on how far Egypt go, I don't think Egypt's going to make it past like the first knockout round. So Salah probably, yeah.
Are you part Egyptian, Sham, or where are your roots again from?
Full Egyptian, yeah.
There we go. See, this is
Right.
his team. Why don't you think Egypt's going to do well?
So the Egyptian national team is
Here we go.
Mohamed Salah, Mohamed El Nani,
Thank you.
but Trezeguet.
Hegazi?
If
Is he still knocking
if
about?
you who El Ghazi?
Ahmed Hegazi? The West Brom
Hegazi,
defender back in the day.
Yeah, he's still. I think he's still there. A little on. I think he's like 31, 32 now. But yeah, it's really, if you want to be blunt about it, it's Salah and like a bunch of NPCs. To be quite honest, it's not like the team of old. I feel so bad for Salah because if Salah had come around maybe 5-6 years earlier, I think Egypt would be kind of a powerhouse in Africa with a lot of the talent they used to have. But that talent hasn't really come through recently. So it's really just Salah and like some pretty mediocre players just dragging Egypt through games. So that'll work for you against like, Djibouti or, against like some of the smaller teams in Africa. But when you're coming up against, Nigeria is crazy right now. Cameroon's pretty solid. Cote d'Ivoire is always pretty good. Yeah, so I don't really like their odds. So I wouldn't be shocked if Salah was back by like the end of January. with all things
Why not?
considered. So we'll see. But when he's gone, I'm not really concerned about Liverpool because you have, like you said, Nunez and Luis Diaz, and they're pretty boom bust. So especially Nunez. Nunez might come up with 2 goals in a game, or he might do nothing. So
Also,
yeah.
Nunes, just finally on Nunes, is he is he is an unbelievable player at making chances for himself, but a lot of that comes from Salah's chance creation. So without Salah, you look left and you got Luis Diaz, you look right and Jota or Harvey Elliott, and Harvey Elliott can create chances, but there's not a lot of goals and there's not a great deal of creation because Salah's assist numbers, not only his goal numbers, his assist numbers are impressive too. So, yeah, that's a massive chunk out of them. It's like taking Saka out of us plus more.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think taking Salah out. I think taking Salah out of the Liverpool team is like us losing Saka and Jesus in terms of kind of the goal and threat creation that you have there. So I'm not. I kind of agree with your assessment that we're probably the best team in the league right now, all things considered. I think if Kevin De Bruyne comes back, that can change very quickly. So we'll see. But yeah, I'm encouraged moving forward just because I saw something that I was kind of worried was no longer there from last season. But Raf, you mentioned Havertz earlier, and I haven't gotten a chance to ask you guys about Havertz recently. So just really quickly touching on him, what have you made of, I guess, his recent renaissance?
I'm pleased for him because I think before the little international break, I was really worried for this guy. I don't know if anyone kept up with my tweets. I was worried for this guy, but he's just started off really well. Like, for example, instead of kind of playing back those wall passes or receiving the ball square, he's kind of like turning his body around and trying to kind of attack into the lane. He's just doing like the basic stuff that he was doing it previously as well, but maybe like once or twice in a match. But now it's way more like prevalent in this game, and like he finally looks like he's understood how the system works, and players around him have like kind of clocked onto his runs. Not all of them, because we did miss a lot of Havertz's runs on Saturday, and he was ignored quite a lot, which I'm still very upset about. But I think he just looks like he finally knows when to make those runs, how to make those runs, and the team around him have got used to him, and hopefully that can help him get some goals that we need from this guy. Because I know many people are like, oh, where you're if you compare him to Xhaka, like he doesn't have to score that many goals, but we know how that role in that left centre mid spot works. It's made for goals. So if you have someone like Havertz, make the most of it and get your goals.
Yeah. James, how about you?
I was going to say something about Havertz. I can't remember what I was going to say. Yeah, it's weird because his physiology seems to have changed ever since his confidence has increased. He just seems to be doing everything with so much more conviction. He's running faster, he's dueling better, and he was dueling well before. Yeah. And this was kind of the silver lining of everything he was doing before. While he was still very poor, he was still doing the basics and the fundamentals very well. But now he seems to be adding parts to his game. And this is what I was going to say. Basically, people forgot at the start, and I understand why people had their concerns, because I did as well, is because he was not able to do some really simple things. And I know his fundamentals, as I say, dueling were good. But for example, not being able to take the ball on the turn was a real concern. We thought, hang on a minute, what's going on here? Like, you got Smith Rowe, who Havertz is better than Smith Rowe. Genuinely, I have no doubt about that. But why can Smith Rowe take the ball on the half turn, charge into some space, but Havertz is just not even willing to do that? What people didn't really consider is this guy has played in all sorts of positions for Chelsea and is now being put in quite a specific role for us in a position that he hadn't played for a while. He typically came off the right often for Chelsea, and I think it was Mount on the left, and he also played up top for a while. So then you're sticking this guy left mid, and he's so used to being that wall. Now you're saying, now you need to play 360. Now you need to play all around us. That on top of all the criticism he was getting from the media, all the criticism he was getting online, which you could tell he took personally. And it's not awfully surprising the way he was playing, but it's nice to see the way he's reacted himself. He came out in an interview and said he had to put his ego to the side and just really play for his place in the team, because he's our highest paid player. He cost us 65 million. It was just about time he started showing it, and he is now. And I do genuinely believe he was our best player against Villa, and he won Player of the Month. Maybe a little bit kindly, because his actual best performances weren't in November, but I'm really, really glad he did, because it does feel deserved. It doesn't feel like a pity vote, and that will only help him further.
Yeah. It's funny because, you know, we've had people on the pod over the last few months kind of talking about Havertz, and I've had to constantly be the guy who's like, well, you know, he's doing well off the ball and he's winning his duels, you know.
Good
So
pass.
I didn't go that far.
Look.
Oh man.
I'm so glad.
I tried to find the silver lining with Havertz, but I didn't go that far. but yeah, you know, I was trying to defend him because I liked the idea of Havertz, and now you're starting to see what it could be, which is really positive, right? And I think some players are just really like that, you know, where you have Declan Rice coming in, and I think Declan Rice is a guy who really just automatically takes on that responsibility and shoulders that burden, and, you know, wants to be that guy, like wants to be the talisman for Arsenal. And so, you know, he took to us like a fish takes to water. But I think with Havertz, I always suspected that he is going to need a bit of time, because he struck me as more of kind of definitely devoid of confidence, first of all.
He
From
was
his time at
carrying a
Chelsea.
lot
Yeah.
of scars from his time at Chelsea, which is crazy because he scored them a Champions League final winning goal. But he would have good periods, and then he would tail off a little bit and just get abused by the fans and criticized by the fans. They do it with all of their players, so it's not wholly surprising that so many of their players are patchy in form. But he very, very clearly looked like someone who just needed an arm around him and needed love. It's a really weird situation to be in. But yeah, he was just like a shell of a player, and you could still tell when he played instinctually. So if I don't know if you remember, there's this pass where Jorginho clips over the top. I think it was against Newcastle, and Havertz took it down on one touch and poked it in the top corner. When he still played automatically, it was still there. But whenever he had to think about a situation, you could tell that's when he felt pressure. And that's what we need to kind of get back to him know that there's trust behind him. And I think that's what he's gaining at the moment, is he's taking more risks, because he knows if he fucks up, the fans are going to still love him and the players are going to still love him. So I think he's kind of warming into that, whereas before he'd get booed just if he misplaced the pass. So as I say, it's a little bit of a difference between the fan bases, and maybe that's because Chelsea have certain expectations and we don't. But look at the trajectories of each club and tell me which one's right.
Weren't Chelsea the statistically worst team in the Premier League this year, this
In the
calendar year?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think they have
And we're not talking underlying stats. We're talking goals and assists and points.
32 points from 32 games, I think, if I'm correct.
God. Relegation
Really?
form.
Spending $1 billion.
What can you say?
Yeah. I'm
jealous.
I'm very happy for Havertz. Sorry?
I'm jealous.
Yeah. I'm very happy for Havertz, because I think it was a very high risk, high reward signing, and I think there's starting to be some hints of what that reward could be. So, you know, hopefully that continues on. And I was getting real annoyed with Zinchenko when Havertz would make those runs in behind the defense. There was one in particular, I forget. I want to say it was like in the 50th, 60th minute, something like that. And Havertz made a run in. Zinchenko literally has the ball facing the run and just turns away and plays the easy pass, which was really infuriating.
I do agree with that, but there is also the opposite side of the argument, which is if you played every single pass to every single Havertz run, our ball retention would be very poor and we would
Mhm.
let the game run away from us. So there were definitely some occasions in which we should. But if someone made a compilation of it and said, look, these are all the opportunities Zinchenko would have done it, then I don't necessarily agree with that, because this is how I played football with my Sunday league team. If I saw someone making a run, I clip it over the top. It doesn't. Football at the highest level isn't as simple as that. So yes, there
Yeah.
are definitely occasions in which it should have happened, and I'm sure he would have been bollocked by Arteta. But not every time should you clip a ball, because we've seen it before where we get overexcited. You saw it with Chelsea. They got overexcited against Spurs' high line, and just started knocking it over every time rather than waiting for the right opportunity. Especially with that Zinchenko ball, I believe the one you're talking about would have had to be a very, very good pass, because it would have been a straight ball and
Yeah.
the straight line would have gone straight into the box. So the clip pass would have had to be just over the defensive line and at the right weight. So the margin for error there is small. That's why a lot of the time I think these passes are tried to either start central and go wide, or even down the line, because it avoids the keeper. But yes, there were definitely some moments in which he should. Just I like to pose the opposite side of the argument, which is some people don't consider that you can't do it every time.
Yeah, no, I don't think we should have done it every time. I think what my issue probably is with the pass selection itself, and not necessarily the frequency of the passes.
The timing of
but
the
yeah.
passes, they got it all wrong.
Yeah. Well, that was another thing. It just felt like, especially in the first half, just felt like we couldn't string together more than 2 passes at a time.
It's like
which
we
was-
couldn't
yeah.
we couldn't believe how much space Villa was giving us. So like, do we play this pass? Like, are we sure we should play this pass? And
Both fullbacks in the first half were technically so poor, and it really
Yeah.
cost us. That's why we started the game so slowly, because neither fullback could pass. It was infuriating. White and Zinchenko, every time they get the ball, albeit look, Villa have a decent press, but they weren't choking us. It wasn't that bad. We didn't have to open our window to escape the suffocation. Like it was just being sloppy, and it really did cost us, because Villa were always going to start heavy, because it's at Villa Park, so they were going to do that, and also because they weren't going to last the full 90, since they played against City a few days before. So yeah, pissed me off that in the first 20 minutes where you need to gain a foothold in the game, they were just not on it at all.
Yeah,
And
100%.
the last thing on Havertz, I know we obviously like expect goals and assists and all that kind of stuff from him. I think one of the biggest things he has going for him is his duels and his ability to win duels. This is not a slight on Xhaka, or like I'm not shitting on him or anything like that. It's just Havertz per 90, 7.2 duels won, whereas Xhaka 3.8, so that's double.
This
and
season?
we sorry.
This season, is that for Xhaka or last season?
So Xhaka last season.
Okay.
Xhaka, yeah, last season, that's it. And
Okay, that makes sense. I thought you meant
3.3 to
this
1.1.
season.
Yeah, no. So you can see exactly what Arteta is trying to do in midfield with Havertz. And, we want goals and assists from him, but he's doing this side of the game as well really well, an important side of the game, and one of the principles for the way Arteta likes to play. So, props to Havertz for doing that as well.
Yeah, I just think he can go on to be a very complete midfielder, be very two-way, and that's kind of what we were looking for in the market at the end of the day. Someone who could do, that gritty defensive side of the job that Xhaka was excellent at, but also kind of build on and improve on, the slightly above average, but perhaps not high enough offensive numbers that Xhaka was producing.
People also don't realize that Xhaka's not that old. I think he's 25 years old, and he spent 3 years rotting at a shit institution. So
you mean Havertz?
Yeah. Havertz is 25, I believe, and he spent 3 years at Chelsea, where he effectively didn't improve a great deal. So we're getting a guy who is still, one, actually young, but also a lot of his development was. And I genuinely believe this, that his development was a little bit stunted by Chelsea, because they were flipping through managers. They had no coherent system. He's the same age as Ødegaard. I think he's like a year older than Nketiah. So if people are going to say Nketiah's young, then Havertz really isn't too old.
Yeah, he went to Chelsea as like a golden boy level talent, and then Chelsea done a Chelsea with him and just like put him in this washing machine, and he's just bidding around there for 4 years. Somehow won a Champions League, because that's what Chelsea does. And they've just spat him out, and he's come out as a shell of what he was when he left the Bundesliga. So I think
he's
now
24.
there we go. So we have
It,
time is on our side with this guy, and we can
So,
make him
hear
make him
this.
what he should be.
He's actually younger than Nketiah.
Damn,
are you serious?
that is crazy.
Wow.
That is crazy.
I mean, and kind of as a little aside, that whole midfield triangle, if you want to treat Rice, Havertz, and Odegaard as the starting midfield, they're all 24, which I think is, really encouraging and, something to be excited about. I didn't know he was younger than Nketiah, though. That's actually kind of
crazy.
wild to me.
I might have to tweet that in a bit. That's quite a crazy stat, actually.
Yeah, I would fire that off. It's. I think it's very timely that Peter Bosz, is it Bosz? Am I pronouncing that correctly? I hate being that American guy who doesn't know how to pronounce people's names. But yeah, Peter Bosz yesterday after the PSV match was talking about Havertz a bit, and he said that he's now playing in his best position. He was calling him almost a perfect player. And Bosz worked with him at Leverkusen, so I think that is really encouraging coming from him. Sorry, James, were you gonna say something?
No, I didn't realize he worked with him at Leverkusen. That makes sense. I was just going, okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, that is something I heard the commentators say, so that's not something that is coming off the top of my head personally. But so he gave a very glowing review of Havertz, and if there's anyone who would know what they're talking about in that regard, I think it is him. But yeah, last thing on the Villa match, and then we'll move on to PSV. I'm tired of talking about refereeing for a number of reasons, but I think it once again played a significant role at the end of this game. There was the potential penalty where Gabriel Jesus got kicked in the ankle, and there was the shoulder barge right into Nketiah's face when he was trying to make a run off the back of
Definitely a red.
Yeah. And then there was, of course, the goal that Havertz scored at the death that was ruled out for handball. And, just to give my take really quickly, I don't want to sit here and say that we lost the game because of the referees, because A, that's not the mentality that I'm trying to have generally, and B, we created more than enough chances to win this game on our own. I think the point I'm trying to make here is that I'm pretty confident Liverpool or City, in the exact same circumstances, would have gotten a little bailed out by those calls, right? Because at the end of the day, you had a penalty, you had a red card, you had a goal, all on the table, and we didn't get any of those calls. And I think
just earlier that day, Liverpool were given a very, very soft red card in their favour. So yeah, and also just I'll hop onto the back of that point. What we're massively suffering from is referees being, I believe, swayed by big home crowds in both the Newcastle and the Villa game, and making a decision in which they're unsure. And on both occasions, VAR wasn't certain enough to overturn it, which effectively means VAR hasn't done anything, and the referee has made a decision on the basis that they're not sure, but they'll appease the crowd. So that just feels a little bit shit, because it's a 50-50. It could go either way. Had it been at the Emirates or had it been in Villa's fate, had it been against Villa, in Villa's favour, he'd have probably gone, yeah, you know what, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. And that could have cost us 1 or even 3 points that game because of it. So it's mad that, refs can make these decisions, and people go, yeah, but VAR will help, and VAR is just not doing anything because it can't help. Just my quick take on the decisions. It wasn't a penalty. I genuinely, that's a hill I'm really strongly willing to die on. There wasn't enough contact for it. Jesus is a master at making the most out of little contact. Often, I do believe he's done enough. This time, Douglas Luiz has touched him slightly more than a touch. He's made contact with him, but he hasn't booted his leg like it would be suggested. It was quite similar to the Liverpool one. And the fact that it seems to happen to him kind of shows that most players don't have the nous to go down like that. He's just very good at getting in those situations. The Havertz handball, I think, is bollocks, but in the rules of the game, it is just about handball, which is so frustrating because I think there's no common sense in the game because his hand hasn't made a difference and he's literally done everything in his possible ability to move his hand and he couldn't. And then I don't know if you saw on Twitter what Dale Johnson said, but this was absolutely outrageous. He said he didn't use his elbow, so it can't be a red. What are you talking about? He's done basically the same as Bruno Guimaraes, where he's got it's a very painful part of the arm if you hit someone with basically your forearm, and he's turned around the wrong direction. There is no reason for him to turn around that way and just clocked him. And the ref didn't see it, and I understand that's fair enough. But VAR should take one look at that and go, fuck, it's a red card. But as I say, and they didn't speak about that on the Premier League review show, probably because they knew they got it wrong.
Yeah. I actually responded to Dale that tweet from Dale Johnson about that, and I just sent him a screenshot of IFAB Rule 12, which covers violent conduct. There's nothing about having to use an elbow in that, right?
Yeah, I know.
I'll just read this out. A player who, when not challenging for the ball, deliberately strikes an opponent or any other person on the head or face with the hand or arm is guilty of violent conduct unless the force used was negligible. That's the rule. And I just think it's kind of asinine to not. Yeah.
A big tell with that decision was Diego. What's his name? I've forgotten his first name. What's his first name again?
Carlos.
Diego Carlos. His
Carlos,
first name is Diego. His second name is Carlos. I was going to say Diego Costa. He didn't react. If you accidentally punch someone in the face, you go, "Oh shit!" He didn't react, so he knew what he was doing. He just carried on running. That's a massive tell that he's not accidentally. He's clocked him and pretended nothing's happened, so the ref didn't turn around. It's mental. And then also it was quite funny because the ref did book him in the end, having not seen it, and they say VAR can't give yellow cards. So apparently the
why has he
linesman
given a
gave
yellow
that,
card
but,
if he didn't see it?
well, the linesman can tell him to, but I have my suspicions that maybe VAR said, yeah, you should probably do something about it, but not a red.
Yeah.
Also, I have a problem with the handball. Just going back to the Havertz thing, the Havertz disallowed goal. I have a problem with the handball rule because it hit Havertz in the hand. We saw that. It also hit Matty Cash on the hand. And I think there's a rule that if during a goal it hits the attacker in the hand, the goal's chalked off, it's done. And there's like this inverse rule for the defender that, the defender has to be like, in an unnatural position and and it can't just hit him in the hand and it's a penalty. So there's like obviously two sets of rules for the attacker and the defender. And in that scenario, like, are you really telling me that Havertz had more clue about it hitting his hand than Cash did? Like, why are we applying different sets of rules to these two players in the same situation? Like, if Havertz is going to have his goal disallowed because of that, why are we getting a penalty for Matty Cash handling the ball there, even if he didn't mean it? I mean, Havertz didn't mean to touch the ball, so
yeah,
it's just annoying the way the rules are.
It's a weird difference of thresholds, and like the Jesus penalty, that's sometimes you get it, sometimes you don't. I'm not going to cry over that. The Nketiah, the incident, 100% a red card. I don't understand why that wasn't given. And then for the Havertz thing, what pisses me off about that call is that Jared Gillett is like 20, 25 yards away, not even in the penalty box. There's players in front of him, so you can question whether or not he even had a view of the call. And and if you can't tell, why not just give the goal and then let VAR sort it out? The guy just decided immediately to say handball, and then of course, because you have the clear and obvious error, VAR's going to take a look at that, and they're going to be like, we can't really tell whether or not you're wrong, so the call's going to stand.
And this is the thing. It's not like on both occasions they've given the goal. So that and the Newcastle one, if they were consistent and gave the goal on both times, and then said, "Oh, we're going to check it," but one time they gave the goal and one time they disallow the goal. That doesn't seem to line up to me. Why are you giving it one time and not giving it the other? Is it because this happens to have happened to the team that was in the ground in which you were being pressured by and against Arsenal. I don't think there's a conspiracy against Arsenal, but refs don't seem to be wanting to do us any favors lately.
I wonder
Yeah,
why.
Also, he's a Liverpool fan.
I won't. Yeah, I was gonna say there is that stuff coming out about Jared Gillett being a Liverpool fan. What I'll say in terms of conspiracies, I don't think there's like an organization wide mandate to not give Arsenal calls. I just think the PGMOL is not a big fan of Mikel Arteta right now.
Yeah.
No,
And at the
of
end of the
course,
day,
and it's human nature. It's human nature, but the fact
Yeah.
that people dispute that is mental. Of course,
Yeah.
they're not going to like him. He called them out, but the fact that they're allowed to then openly make incorrect decisions and their bum buddies on etc. All these media channels are backing them up. No one's calling them out, so of course the game's not going to improve. And any teams or managers that does call them out gets villainized. It's mental. And now he's going to miss. He's going to miss the Liverpool game as well. It's unbelievable the way the FA have treated Arteta recently as well.
I think personally, I find the PGMO very comparable to the police force in this country, and it's just when they get called out or anything, they'll just shell it at you, and they'll just kind of like kick you out and just call against you wherever they can, and never really take a blame or anything like that. And ironically, Howard Webb was a policeman, so you can see where that comes from. Like it's a very, for them, it's a very us versus them, whereas just work with us, like try understanding what you're doing wrong. Like sure, Mikel Arteta can make a comment like he did against at the end of the Newcastle match, but that was obviously after the match. Tensions are high, emotions are high, because mate, there's millions on the line here. There's millions of pounds on the line here. They need to understand that. But it's just whenever they get called out, they just have this, like, especially with Arteta, I guess, just they don't want to see eye to eye with him, which is a problem.
Did you see what Peter Walton said today or yesterday?
Oh my goodness, man!
It's pathetic. It's absolutely pathetic. Yeah, a ref in Turkey got punched, and the first person that comes to mind is Arteta and Klopp, and blaming them. It's not even. He wasn't even subtle about it. He just straight up said, "Yeah, this is Arteta's fault." And you're telling me that they're not making different decisions based on Arteta being manager, but they're willing to say that in public. Okay.
It wasn't just Peter Walton either. It was what's his name? John Cross, Henry Winter both came out and said effectively the same thing. They're like, these managers need to think twice about coming out and criticizing the refs after games because we're so close to it turning. We're not, that's not going to happen in the Premier League. I can't, Klopp gets pretty angry sometimes. I can't guarantee that. But, I'll believe it when I see it.
We just want a better game, man. That's what we're asking for.
Yeah. So it is what it is. Unfortunately, I'm just keeping my fingers crossed for that independent regulator that it sounds like the UK government wants to put in. I know that's only going to be kind of limited to business and financial situations when it first comes in, but maybe they'll see fit to extend it out to the refereeing. We'll see.
We just got to make good friends with the buddies at UEFA because we've got the Champions League at least. If the Premier League is playing against us,
yeah. But we'll set the Villa game aside and we'll move on to PSV, and that was a bit of a dead rubber. So I don't think it's really worth it to get into some of the nuances of the game, but I do just kind of want to talk about the approach to kind of the distribution of minutes that we saw in the game, because there was a lot of conversation about this, online and different shows and different podcasts and stuff like that. Are you disappointed that some of the youth players on the bench didn't get any time, or do you think Arteta had his reasons and justifiable reasons for doing so? James, I'll go to you first.
To tell you the truth, I don't know. I don't understand why. Also, I don't know if this was deliberate. What is quite amusing is Pep today has I'm just checking the team now, but I know for certain that he has
One of them
started
scored.
quite a young
One of the
team.
youngsters scored.
Bob
there
and
you go.
Hamilton started.
Yeah, and I suppose they are against Red Star, but yeah. So that just shows that I don't know. I think that was Pep trying to give a little nod to Arteta, saying, "Look, I'm resting my players. What's going on over there?" Maybe that's because their squad is a little bit thinner than ours now. I think that probably comes into it. But for example, people like Jesus coming on instead of Ranieri, it doesn't make much sense to me. I'm not the manager of Arsenal Club. I never will be. So I'm not going to tell Arteta how to do his job. But I'd love to know why he can't just get some experience and why the fans can't see a player like that play. And if he's deemed too young, there are players like Ruel Walters, who are plenty old enough and seem to have had enough experience pre-season, but just for whatever reason can't get running in the Champions League. It seems odd.
Yeah. Raf, what do you think?
Personally, I just don't care enough. It's just it's
That
a
too.
dead. Yeah, I think I understand where Arteta is coming from. It's his first season in the Champions League. He has a point to prove, and he will win any game where he can, when he can, because mate, it's just like I know many are comparing him to like Guardiola, and look at Guardiola starting the younger players and all that. He's won the Champions League 3 times. He done the treble last season. So for him, it's just all child's play. It doesn't really matter to him at this point if he loses a game against Red Star or not. But I know it was a dead rubber game. Even then, if we lost that game, it doesn't look good on Arteta, and Arteta doesn't want that. And
Also, just to jump on that, these players, people don't realize like Arsenal's under 19s were rock bottom of the what's it called, the Youth Champions League. So
yeah,
and people were asking basically for half of those players to start in the main Champions League away against PSG.
it
They'd have
is.
got battered. Like we're
Yeah.
not going to start a midfield of Nwaneri and Lewis Skelly. I understand they are both incredible talents, but it would have been ridiculous just to throw away a game and just unnecessarily lose. So I don't agree that they should have started. I think there could have been time off the bench, but as you said, Raf, it's not worth losing sleep over. The reaction was a
No.
bit pathetic from some people.
And also,
Yeah.
I know many people were scared, like, oh, you shouldn't play Saliba because what if he gets injured? And I know FK replied with that, and all I had to say was just, I went outside yesterday, I stepped in a puddle, therefore I will never go outside again. It doesn't make sense. Just play Saliba if he needs to be played. They're nowhere near like the maximum minutes or like minutes played or whatever you want to call it. We're not even at the main part of the season. These players
Also, it
need their
wasn't
minutes right.
like Sporting where you're right. It was in a much more minutes heavy part of the season. They're chilling at the moment, and they didn't
Yeah,
exert themselves that much because it wasn't a knockout game in the Europa League. It was a
yeah.
Champions League group game. So most of these
You
players
could
who
see
started
they were
probably
playing
played
at
there.
50%. You could
Yeah.
yeah, it's literally a glorified friendly game. It doesn't really matter. And
Also,
also,
we're
these
only a
players
couple weeks.
these players need minutes in their legs right now. Because we need to peak at the right time. And if we're just all of a sudden, missing a match here and there because we need to keep them fit. And I think also, benching players because they need rest is such an archaic way of thinking. We don't know the stats, we don't know the science behind this. They have all the data that you need, and they probably know exactly when a player needs to be benched or sat down or rested.
Yeah.
So I think it's Arsenal fans, our default is to complain. That's what we've done for the last 15 years in this online space. So we've just found another thing to complain about. So we're complaining, and we just don't understand it. It's fine. Let Arteta do what he needs to do. That's all it is.
Yeah, I think with like Souza and Walters, I get. I don't think any of them should have started, and I get Souza and Walters not touching the pitch because if you're getting cooked by like Bakayoko and Ricardo Pepi, I don't think that's great for a young player's ego and for their confidence. But I do wish Nwaneri had come on instead of Jesus. I agree about that. But yeah, I think this is a game where you had minutes to give to people who need minutes in the senior squad. And, if you're Jorginho or if you're El Neni or if you're like any other player who just like hasn't gotten enough minutes this season, like Cedric. I know Cedric doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things, but like if you're seeing some academy kid come in and take your minutes in a game where like it really doesn't matter, then it's just not the
It's
best
not
message
even
to
it's
send.
not even just how they feel about it. It's these players need to be match sharp. These players need to be
Yeah,
able to play 80 minutes because we might rely on them at some point. And if you've
yeah,
gone, fuck Cedric, we don't need him, we don't need him. All of a sudden, two players get injured in the next week. Then hang on a minute, we need Cedric to start. And you're telling me, all right, Real Walters is not as good as Cedric right now. So yes, we could have given him an experience in the Champions League, but then you turn around and go, "Oh, Cedric, by the way, we need you. We've got a few injuries." And he goes, "I haven't played in 6 week, boss. I haven't got any match sharpness." So it was a perfect opportunity to get some of these peripheral players ready to play if we needed them because we don't
yeah,
know what's going to happen and we might.
yeah. And I think back to the end of the 21-22 season when we'd played essentially the same 11 all year, and then people started getting injured, and we were throwing in guys who had not touched the pitch in months to
Precisely.
try to save our top four challenge. Yeah, it's kind of a similar deal than that. So I don't really think it's a big deal. Honestly, I do think a lot of people have gone overboard with the whole thing. I'm seeing people talk about getting rid of Arteta because he doesn't respect our club's values. It doesn't matter. It's as long as no one got injured, then like I don't really care. So
And just on the
yeah,
bright side, that you'll never see this team ever again. You'll never see a pairing of El Neni and Jorginho and Cedric on as a wing back ever again. And take solace in that. So just leave it at that.
yeah. But in terms of positives, there were I think a few standout performers on the day. So I just want to get you guys' thoughts on that. Raf, was there anyone who started who perhaps hasn't gotten enough game time who you think looked pretty good against PSV?
Very
I
pointed.
think I think Reece Nelson probably comes to mind.
Yeah.
He had a good game, and I don't think Arteta has made enough use of him off the bench, I want to say. And I think this is on Reece Nelson now to prove to Arteta, I'm still, good enough to come off the bench in these Premier League matches. If we need more legs out wide, which I've felt many times during the season, just to give us someone out wide who can, carry the game into the deeper parts. And he hasn't chosen Reece Nelson to do that so far in the season. And I think he had a good game. He's a technically secure player. He will never drop a stinker or anything like that. So I think it's up to Arteta now if he wants to make more use of him. And I think either way, he's probably someone that has to leave sooner than later to just to find his career and finally get some minutes, because I just don't think it will happen at Arsenal with all the guys that are here. And I don't think being a bench player like that is really effective for your career. But he had a good game, and I just hope Arteta can make more use of him, and we can hopefully get another Reece Nelson moment like we did last season. That's all I can hope for.
Yeah, I think it looked really good, and I agree. There have been a lot of situations in which maybe Martinelli wasn't available, or Martinelli didn't have the best game, and all of a sudden Trossard got subbed on to be kind of this touchline guy, and I think Nelson's just so much more suited to that. I don't think
I was
Nelson's
having to
been
think about
trusted.
this earlier. I believe probably the main and almost only reason for that is because Arteta trusts Trossard's output. Because I was thinking it makes so much more sense to sub on Reece Nelson as a touchline winger, but if they both found space in the box, you would trust Trossard to convert the ball more than not. That's why I think as a sub, I still in the Villa game don't agree because there was a lot of space to deal with, but in tight spaces games, I would still put Trossard out wide. But what I do strongly believe is if Martinelli isn't fit to start a game, I would start Reece Nelson because he is a much better winger, whereas Trossard is a good finisher and also game finisher. Um, but yeah, so I agree basically on what you both said. We need to see more of him. He made a very clear point that he isn't here to be part of that second team because he put in a class performance. And to be honest, I'd love to see him start instead of Martinelli at one game, even if he's fit, just because we've had games where, for example, Kivior played left back because we can afford it, but then Arteta will still play Martinelli and Saka. So I don't know if this is partly a case of he's trying to play Martinelli into form, but because I don't think Martinelli's the type of player who's especially more motivated by getting benched. I think he's as motivated as he can be. He's just not on it. But yeah, I'd like to see Reece Nelson start a few games if Martinelli's not going to, because his output's not going to be much worse than what Martinelli's producing at the moment.
Yeah, and I just think people very much underrate how good a player Reece Nelson is. I still don't think, he's at the level of Saka Martinelli. I still think Trossard's probably a better player, all things considered. But I just think Nelson has a really good combination of pace, of physicality. He does that work defensively now. He's had a few appearances this season where he's really put in a nice shift off the ball. I think he's always been pretty impressive in terms of his output, his goals and assist record. And on top of that, I think the one complaint I had about him over the years is his decision making, but I think that's improved as well. He's not giving the ball away needlessly now. He's playing very well in tight spaces. His technical level has been pretty reliable recently. So yeah, I don't really see much of a reason why he can't be included more than he currently is. But yeah, that was one of the standout performers. James, is there anyone else that you thought was pretty good on the day?
Not to the point where it has affected my perception on them and their role in our squad. I think Jorginho was okay first half, but again, we know his role in the squad and we know how he is. Havertz again showed some bright moments, only more of the same that we'd seen recently, but there was nothing from the game apart from Reece that I thought, yeah, you know what, you've made a point here, basically.
I have one more player I want to give his flowers, Cedric Soares. He just needs to get his flowers because, man, his stock was low before the match. I know many people are like, oh, he's not even fit for the championship. Listen, this is probably the first game he's played in over a year more. He's done a decent job. He's done maybe he shouldn't start for us in the Premier League and all that kind of stuff. But you know what? He's been an appearance in the Champions League match. He's got a pre-assist. He's done his thing. So flowers to him.
He was pretty good in that move. He was better than I expected him to be on the day. Although I think he also had a very Cedric performance.
That's all
where he did. Yeah, he did. He did some of the complicated things very well, and then he messed up a lot of simple passes.
Yeah.
But that's the show that you're going to get with Cedric. So yeah, I do think I feel a little bad for him because he really should have just kind of taken off and gone somewhere else and got more minutes. But he decided to stick around, which I respect to some extent. But also, it's a pretty good paycheck, so I understand why you'd stick around.
I'd do that as well. So. What? I'll do the same.
Yeah. So that leaves us, moving on from the group stage. We finished first. Like I said, the PSV match didn't really have an impact on that. But I do want to take a second because, what is football without being able to kick our rivals when they're down? And when we went through again, first place, we're waiting to see who we're going to play in the round of 16. United hosted Bayern Munich, and they needed a win, and they didn't get it, and they finished last in their group, and they are going to plummet out of the Champions League. No European football whatsoever for the rest of the season. Just how much fun are you having with kind of the implosion that United are going through right now? James, I'll go to you first.
Can I just say, well, first of all, it's a Hall of Shame Champions League group performance. I believe the worst actually Champions League group stage we've ever seen from an English team. They got 4 points in a group with Copenhagen and Galatasaray in it. That is disgraceful. And I just want to also touch upon the fact that there are people trying to point out as if United not getting Europa League is a good thing. They're not going to qualify for the Champions League this year. That was their only pathway to qualify for the Champions League. So I don't know. Yeah, I don't know why people are trying to pretend it's a good thing. They are in a bad place. Ten Hag is allowed to do whatever he wants. Onana, again, didn't cover himself in glory, but Viva Man United, because I enjoy watching every minute of it.
Yeah, I think this is a time to reminisce, and talk about all the guys who are like, United is back. Trophies are all the currency of success and what not, and all the all the talk that we heard after a mighty Carabao Cup win. Yeah, just enjoy it. What else can I say? Liverpool next. It's only gonna get worse. So you know what? I don't even have anything to say about Man United anymore because they're just so bad. Just let them, just keep the energy away from us, man. It's just some teams, obviously you want to banter your rivals, but it gets to the point where they're just so crap. You don't even want to say anything. Just watch it. Just watch it unfold. Just let it happen. Like I am with Chelsea now. Like, I can't be asked to talk about Chelsea anymore because they're rubbish. Everyone knows they're rubbish. So just leave it at that.
Dude, I went and bought a car the other day, and the guy who was doing the financing for the car at the dealership had a big Chelsea flag on the wall of his office, and I walked in and I sat down, and I was like, "Are you a Chelsea fan?" And he was like, "I don't want to talk about it." And I was like, no, wait. Like, I just want to say, I respect the idea that you guys are going for it. So you need to stick it out a little bit longer. He's like, no, burn it all to the ground. Luckily he didn't give me.
As an Arsenal fan, we've been through that period. We can sympathise where someone says, "Are you an Arsenal fan?" You go, "I don't want to talk about it." Next question. Next question.
Big 2019. What a fun year for me. But yeah, when it comes to United, I'll just do a quick victory lap because I grew up in the 90s and the early 2000s when you had. I'm sure it's annoying in the UK and in London, but when you're talking to like random American guys who saw United win a bunch of things on TV and then decided they were going to be United fans and they're talking shit all the time, it's very special for me to to watch them where they are now. But yeah, I saw someone come out today and say that United crashing out of the group stage is a bad thing for English football. I think it's an excellent thing for English football. Really gives the real clubs a chance to shine. But anyway, that's enough time on them. I think a fun thing to close out this pod episode with, and I've already kept you guys here for over an hour. I think a fun thing to close out this pod episode with would be kind of a quick little go around on which team you guys hope we face off against in the round of 16. So I know it's not finalized yet. I have the list actually in front of me right now. So it's Copenhagen, Braga, Inter, and then it's either Atletico or Lazio. I think Atletico have to lose to Lazio to not finish in first place. So I'm going to assume Lazio for the time being. Anyone from Group F, because that's just a clusterfuck at the moment. And then RB Leipzig, and then one of Shakhtar, Antwerp, and Porto. So which one are you hoping that we encounter the round of 16, and why? Raph,
Copenhagen. Sorry, Copenhagen would be hilarious.
It would be. I'm how do I put this? I've got an eye on Copenhagen. I feel like Copenhagen are very quietly a much better team than we all think they are, because I think they also gave Bayern a little bit of trouble. They, battered United twice. They might not be that good a team, and they might have just had a good run in the group stage. But I'm wary of Copenhagen.
But Sham, remember who we are. We're not Arsenal of 2019 anymore. Let's not.
This is fair.
If we're gonna win the whole thing, we should be dispatching of Copenhagen and laughing at United fans while we do it.
Yeah, that's fair. Raph, how about you?
I think Copenhagen or probably Lazio would be the two easier teams to get. I know there's a couple teams, and like someone like PSG might potentially finish second, which is that's a different thing. Imagine Mbappe at the Emirates. That'll be it's already hard to
I
get
won't,
tickets now.
I
Imagine
can't
that.
even be there either.
Yeah, I think there's a couple teams like Inter as well. Inter is actually obviously they got to the Champions League final last season, so they're quite good in that sense. Probably, ideally, I'd want someone like Copenhagen, but at the same time, I just want like a massive Champions League match because I think obviously the group that we got in the Champions League was very Europa League-esque, and other than the little ceremony you have in the Champions League before a match starts, at times it didn't really feel like a Champions League match in terms of the competition and all that. And then when you see Newcastle taking on PSG at their home ground and you see the atmosphere and you're like, you know what, we could do with some of that. We could do with some of that, and we could do with, announcing ourselves to the rest of Europe properly and beating one of the big boys at home. Ideally, I would have done it in the group stage, where the stakes are a bit lower. But you know what, if by some chance you have a team like, Inter or PSG or whatever, if they somehow end up with us in around the 16th height, bring it on, man. Because
Do you know when it is? When it's due to be played?
I swear the matches are played like February. I want to say
I thought
February,
so.
March.
Yeah, I thought so.
Yeah. The draw is on Monday, so that's something to look forward to. Because you know what is hilarious, because I haven't seen us obviously play like a comfortable round of 16 in like 10 years or more. It's ridiculous. Like, not in my lifetime, not in my Arsenal watching lifetime, I haven't. So this is still very new to me, which is very sad. It is very sad, but that's just the way it is, and hopefully we can finally enjoy it now.
Yeah, I agree with that point where it hasn't really felt like we're like back in the Champions League yet. I mean, obviously that first match back in, was really special. But I remember when the draw came out and people were making jokes about how you can take Arsenal out of the Europa League, but you can't escape the Europa League. You can't all that jazz. It kind of has felt like we were in a Europa League group stage, to be quite honest. So I wouldn't mind a match against like Inter, or if can AC Milan still make it out of the group? Is that
They
a
can.
possibility?
That group is a mess. We'll obviously find out in half an hour what's going to happen.
Yeah.
That would be
So it's
sick.
currently Dortmund on 10 points. I think they get first spot probably, and then second spot right now is between PSG, Newcastle, and AC Milan. Which is obviously we can't get Newcastle if they finish second. So there's a chance either we get PSG or AC Milan, which is they're both big clubs and it'll be quite a crazy match in their own rights.
Yeah. I think I'd rather take on one of the Milan clubs right now. I wouldn't hate PSG. I think I'd just rather have like one more match or like one more round before we have to face off with them. But I think that'd be a fun game. So yeah, part of me wants like that big name team for us to face off against, and then part of me wants to just get like Copenhagen or Braga and just dispatch them pretty straightforwardly and move on. But yeah, we'll see. It's just really nice that we're not crashing out of our group. It's not like a final day of the group stage kind of thing where we're scrambling to just make it out. So it is nice that we got the business done at the end of the day, and so looking forward to it, and hopefully Newcastle crashes out of their group, and then I'll really be having a good time. But yeah. So
my expectation is just as long as we don't lose 10-2 again, I'm fine. I'm all good. So
I think those days are behind us for the time being.
I hope so.
But any I guess before we go, any kind of closing thoughts on where we are at this point in the season? Things you'd like to see kind of for the Liverpool match, or what? How you guys feeling at this point?
Not, not a great deal, but what I just want to say to everyone is just enjoy the ride. People get so
Yeah.
hung up and stressed about everything we're going through, about the little things. Oh, youth players not starting. Just enjoy the ride because it's been so many years, and people are kind of taking for granted the fact that we're 1 point off top, being halfway through the season. We will be there by the end of the season. We
We
will
will
be
be
up
there.
there. Exactly. So just enjoy it and stop moaning about every game. If we win a game but don't absolutely batter a team, we've still won the game. Enjoy it. The expectations are changing at the football club, but don't let that make you enjoy the small victories any less, basically.
Yeah, I have to echo James's thoughts because it wasn't that long ago that it kind of felt like a thing, a duty to watch Arsenal more than watching them to enjoy it. And every time that I tap into Arsenal or go to the ground to watch their matches, there's a sense of excitement and there's a sense of anticipation with the club, and it kind of like feels like we're building towards something, whereas usually at this point of the season, we were like, it felt very useless at times, and it was all about the top four and, Europa League and that Thursday, Sunday schedule and all that kind of stuff, which was horrible. But yeah, it's just be happy with it. Like, you don't realize about the good times until the good times are gone. These are the good times. So just enjoy it as it is and, be excited for all the big games that we're playing. We're going to Anfield in a couple weeks' time to play in a title match. What more do you want? That's football. What more do you want? So just enjoy it as it
But
is.
even Raf, we were there against Burnley, and it was
Yeah,
sad how last season, because there was so much optimism and excitement, the fans were so up for a game like that. Even this
yeah,
season, it was the atmosphere was so flat. So I don't want us to now only look forward to the big games because
yeah,
it was a bit embarrassing at times. We were told to sit down in the North Bank. That's not how it should be at Arsenal. And one of the things that made us so ferocious last season was that atmosphere. We don't want to
yeah.
turn into a city where every game is just taken for granted and yeah, it's flat until there's a little bit of a goal and then you just go flat again. No, it took them to score for our fans to actually wake up. So yeah, I just want everyone to kind of act as they did last season and just enjoy it and cherish every moment, like we said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's just lock
I
in. I'm going Brighton on Sunday, so we need to bring the noise and get it going again.
Yeah. I just think it's a fun time to be an Arsenal fan. And, there's way more teams that have that potential of being in this situation than there used to be. It's not like during the 2000s where it was us Chelsea United um, and Liverpool. There's 8 teams now that really could be, getting into the Champions League or competing for the title in any given season. So this isn't going to be forever. And I've been through hell over the last few years with Arsenal. So I just kind of want to enjoy it, and I want to enjoy the big games, and I want to watch us bully the smaller teams in the league as well, and just have a good time doing it. So yeah, totally on the same page with you guys. I think that'll do it for this episode of This Week in Arsenal. Again, I would like to thank both of you guys for coming on. James, you can follow him on Twitter/X at AFC James. Raf, you can follow him at Rafsenal. You can find both of these guys on No Ratings, the No Ratings podcast. I remembered this time the caffeine kicked in. Again, it's a really fun pod. I don't listen to that many like soccer podcasts or football podcasts because I just don't have the time like that. But I do make sure to tune into you guys along with a few Arsenal podcasts because it's a fun time. And yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at Shamsdale. You can follow the pod at This Week Arsenal. You can follow Sash at LT Arsenal. He will be back soon. And if you're watching this on YouTube, please like, subscribe, comment, all that jazz. Subscribe on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. You know the rules. So anyway, thanks so much for being here with us. Thanks for listening to us again. And we will be back talking to you, hopefully, after a win against Brighton this weekend. Until then, take care, stay safe, and talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Maybe we'll have a good surprise for you.